you talked on, and I'm going to unmute you right now. On to you, Don. Can you? Oh, I can barely hear you.
Okay.
You're good.
Yeah, and I apologize. I was having trouble getting onto the Zoom. And so I missed the very first part of it. But on that, so there are no plans, if you do this at this intersection, there are no plans to widen the street at that point. You know, it's my opinion that you would be opening the door for almost head-on crashes there, because that is, especially in the winter, and we mentioned this first meeting, especially in the winter, that can be slick, going from Glenwood down to the stop sign at Overridge. And the street itself, if you can just look at the direction of the street, you almost have to turn to stay, if that was two-way, turn to stay in your lane. You know, and I also question whether this is going to really affect the speed on Glenwood, which, you know, this whole thing began because of pedestrian safety. That is the primary concern. Another suggestion that someone brought up was, could there be a bike pedestrian lane on the east side of Glenwood there, so that actually, you know, which would be a painted line, but it would be a place where people could, you know, feel a bit safer, and cars would say, oh, I'm not allowed in there. But my main concern is that that really is not wide enough to, you know, to accommodate two-lane travel, especially with the curve in the road right at the stop sign there. And one other thing that I looked at was, it's right now it's a three-way stop, and you've got the one stop sign that is on Overridge when you're going northeast. If that could be, it would still be a three-way stop, but make that two stop signs so that you would actually have a stop right where, and you had it on your diagram, right at the northeast part of the island on Overridge, but then put a separate stop sign. If you left the Y there, put a separate stop sign in the Y, so that they would have to stop before coming onto Glenwood. So those are my comments right now.
Thank you very much, Don. I appreciate that. I'm going to mute you now. Cynthia, is there anything you want to add to that?
As I previously stated, this is the drawing that you've received. You know, it is a preliminary design, and we will be, you know, meeting our engineering standards. The question comes up frequently, you know, like, is that going to be wide enough? And it doesn't feel like it's wide enough. And part of that is because, you know, if we're used to a lot of our streets in our neighborhoods are really wide, and in a lot of places they're actually a lot wider than they need to be, and you know, a lot of places they're wide enough to allow for parking on both sides of the street. But our standard design lane for it is really 10 feet. And so then that's a 20-foot wide width that you actually, you know, that you really need for the vehicle. So we would be looking at something definitely wider than that, as I think it's shown as 25 right now, and where that final curb line would lie is yet to be determined, and we may look at making that a little bit wider given the, you know, concerns that we have about pedestrians in this area. As far as whether a painted, you know, walking line is something, you know, some sort of an edge line out here, you know, the safest walking space for pedestrians in a longitudinal manner is on the sidewalk. And, you know, so if you were looking at something like a pedestrian facility on this street, that's kind of where we would be looking at as a city. You know, it might be something that we would consider like as an interim measure. And I'm sure that some of you are thinking, well, you know, like, what about Arlington? Arlington actually has the parking areas striped. So that is a lane line for the parking areas. We are aware that a lot of people do walk in those areas and cycle in those areas, but you know, that was a striping those lanes was a treatment installed to kind of give some visual narrowing to the space and encourage slower speeds. So that's something that is outside of the traffic calming program's toolbox.
Thank you. Really quickly, we have quite a few questions. They want elaboration on how the snow and ice will be maintained at this intersection. That is kind of more of a field question. Cynthia, do you have a little bit of knowledge on that one you'd like to answer?
Yeah, I think the thing to keep in mind is we frequently get a lot of questions about snow removal when it comes to traffic calming and if traffic calming devices are installed. And the answer to that question is, as Andrew said, it is under the under field operations to determine that. So that's our public works department, and they set their schedule and their frequency of their maintenance. But traffic calming does not affect winter maintenance. You know, they will maintain with the same regularity that they would on a street that did not have traffic calming.
So we have actually kind of gone over our time. We still have 4 raised hands, with one of them being a phone caller, so they don't actually have the option to type things in. So I am going to get through these questions really quickly, and I'm also going to allow 877 to talk and ask their question. So I'm asking to unmute you. Feel free to talk. 887. We cannot hear you if you are talking. You have to press *6 to unmute yourself. Alrighty. Oh, go on.
I was going to say, I just wanted to point out that we can hear your phone beeping. So if you talk, we might be able to hear you. Okay.
877, can you try to present your question to us right now? Yeah, we still cannot hear you, so I guess we'll continue to move on.
Thank you. And a few more questions. Someone wanted me to clarify the petition, what the petitioned area was again. That is from it's on Glenwood from Overridge to Washtenaw. Also, I want to clarify that this is a preliminary plan that we are presenting today. It is not final. Everyone will have a chance to pull on the devices, which is actually our next slide. We're going to ask you to pull on how you do you like this device? Do you not like this device? So I just wanted to say that as well. And Cynthia or Kayla, do you think there's anything else that needs to be addressed? I know we have 3 outstanding phone callers, but we do have to move forward. If I can allow you guys to talk, but you have to get brief and to the point because we do want to move forward. So Erica Stein, I'm gonna allow you to talk for a minute.
Okay, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I live on Exmoor Road, and I'm the person who was trying to talk on the phone has texted me, so I think I'll try and voice her concerns. She also lives on Exmoor. Many of us are big walkers, bikers, runners in this area, and we run through that intersection multiple times. So I have a lot of concern about decreasing the size of it, because already the visibility is not great because of the hills in that location. So I understand that it's an unusual intersection as of now, but I think it's unusual because we have no sidewalks here. And so what this gives us is it gives us a little bit of wiggle room when we have pedestrians. And so if you get rid of that, the room for pedestrians is going to be significantly decreased. Visibility is poor. I already mentioned the Q&A, but there's a lot of kids in the area. Our closest bus stop is on Bedford. And so from where I am on Exmoor, it doesn't make sense to cross Edinburgh and walk all the way up Overridge. And so walking on Glenwood is the shortest route. And I wouldn't feel safe sending my children through that intersection if it's going to be decreased like that. Because already I've taught them to be very safe in terms of crossing, and I'd be very concerned if it were decreased in size.
Thank you very much, Erica. We are taking that, we've recorded that, and it will be put down and taken into consideration. So we appreciate it. Thank you. Going forward, I am going to unmute and allow Stahaline. Sorry, I apologize for butchering your name if I did. To talk, if there's anything you want to add that has not already been covered at this time, feel free. I'll give you a minute to talk. Feel free to talk. Oh. I cannot hear you if you are talking. We will move on at this time. Councilmember Lum, I'm going to allow you to talk. If there's anything you would like to add that has not already been covered, please do really quickly. Oh, Councilmember Lum is gone. Okay, so I guess we're going to, oh, there we go. Go ahead, Councilmember Lum. All right, we will be moving on. My apologies. I guess I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties.
So just as a reminder to those who raise their hand to speak, once Andrea gives you permission, you need to unmute yourself on your controls at your computer. So in case that was the issue there for either, so it looks like Councilmember Lum, you are now unmuted. You can go ahead and speak.
Thanks, Kayla. Yeah, no, sorry. I'm good. I know you need to move on, and I've just sent in some comments, peanut gallery comments on the Q&A. So, and I appreciate the feedback that you're getting, and hope that this will all be recorded. I know you did a nice job with the follow-up on the first meeting on August 12th. The discussion summary was very helpful. So, and I'm assuming that this summary will also capture the feedback that you're getting tonight.
Yes, all of it. All of it will be captured in the Q&A and be responded to appropriately. We are not just going to dismiss these concerns. They will be addressed, like in meeting discussion number 1.
And will the oral feedback also, like
Yes.
Ms. Stein's comments that were just made about Exmoor and Glen, like those will also be recorded?
Yes.
That's our cat, sorry, in the feedback. Okay, excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to try to unmute one more time, Stahaline, and see if you can do that. So feel free to unmute yourself at this time. You do that by pressing mute at the bottom left of your computer. If you're on a computer, if you're on your phone, I think it's also the bottom left. Alrighty, so if you can figure that out, I'll leave you on mute for a few seconds. We are going to move on to the polling. So polling, yay, everyone gets to now provide their feedback. So I am going to launch the poll right now. So launch polling. And what it says is, do you support device number 1, curb extension? Yes, I support this device and live in the petition project area of Glenwood from Overridge to Washtenaw. So again, this is the people that have petitioned for this and live in it. Yes, I support this device, but do not live in the petition project area of Glenwood from Overridge to Washtenaw. No, I do not support this device and live in the petition project area of Glenwood from Overridge to Washtenaw. Or no, I do not support this device and do not live in the petition project area. Again, if you've called in on the phone and you would like to provide your feedback as well, please press *9 and I will unmute you and you will be able to provide your answer and we will record it. (887). Oh, Kayla, do you want to?
Yep, 887. It looks like your hand is raised. You are being made, you are allowed to speak. You'll press *6 to unmute yourself and provide your poll response. So do you, if we can do this as a two-part, might be easiest. Do you live in the project area? Yes or no? 887, if you can speak your response. Yes or no, do you live in the project area? And then yes or no, do you support device number 1? And it looks like we were not able to hear 887. Erica, I believe you said that you are receiving texts from that participant, Erica Stein. If you would be willing, they can text you and you can read their response. We'll accept that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Kayla. And there you go.
All right, Erica Stein, you're now allowed to speak. Please press the unmute button. And if you could share the poll response, that would be helpful.
Sure. It was, I don't live in the area and I do not support device 1.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. We appreciate that. Alrighty, so I'm going to close polling right now. I think that's been ample amount of time, and I'm going to share results. I'm also going to read those results for the people who are on the phone. So, do you support device number 1, curb extension? Yes, I support this device. There are 14% who live in the project area who support it. There is 4% who do not live in the project area and support this device. There are 25% who do not support this device and live in the project area. And then there is 57% who do not support this device and do not live in the project area. The person who called in, your response will be incorporated in the meeting discussion and that will be reflected there. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. So I have another question. We're going to ask about this specific device, not this device, but I'm going to launch a poll that asks, sorry, I'm trying to get this and I'm having technical difficulties today, my luck, right? So an alternative to this device would be, do you support no traffic calming at the intersection of Glenwood and Overridge intersection? So again, do you support no traffic calming? So instead of having this T intersection, you would prefer to have nothing there instead. So yes, I support no device and live in the petitioned area. Yes, I support no device, but do not live in the petition area. No, I support a device. You want a device there. Or no, and you live in the petition area. Or no, I support a device at this location and do not live in the petitioned area. If you want me to re-ask, please let me know.
And I'll also point out, I'll just add on, we realize this is a bit of a double negative, the way this question's worded. We just want to really get clarity because we saw such a high number of people opposed to the device that was presented at location number 1, that the alternative is no device there. And so to truly get clarity, we're just reframing it in this way. We hope that you can bear with us on the awkward wording. We do have one hand that is raised. Cynthia Sheng, are you, I'm going to allow you to talk and you can provide your poll response verbally. So you are now allowed to speak. You can put your unmute button.
I got it. You can
Thank you.
hear me. Okay.
Yep, we can hear
So
you.
just to clarify, I mean, you're really asking us if the choice is to do nothing there. When you say, do
Exactly.
you support no traffic calming, right?
At that location, yes.
Okay, so if I want to say I wish city to not spend money in redoing that whole area, I would say yes, I support no device.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the clarifying. Okay. So do you want my answer? Verbally?
If you participated in the poll on your computer, you don't need to provide a verbal response as well. I
I have not. So I don't want to vote twice. I'll just tell you here. I will take the second option. Yes, I support no device, and I do not live in the petitioned area.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I'll put you back on mute. Thank you, Cynthia.
Alrighty, we are going to close polling. And polling, I'm going to share results. So, do you support no traffic calming device at the Glenwood and Overridge intersection? So 20% who live in the project area said yes, they do not support a device. They're okay with not having one. Yes, I support no device, but do not live in the petitioned area. It was 48%. No, I support a device at this location and live at the petitioned project area, which was 20%. And no, I support a device at this location and do not live in the petitioned area, which was 12%. That's very helpful information, so we appreciate that. Thank you for answering that question, and we are going to move on. Slide, please.
I will, but I'm actually going to back us up for a minute because I realized that I forgot to do something.
What?
Whoops, I went too far. I forgot to discuss, oh, that's device number 4. Never mind. I'm going to discuss it right now anyways, because I realized I forgot it. Some of you may have noticed that device number 4 did get shifted a little bit to the east. And that was based on some feedback that we received. So it will have the same design characteristics. It's just being shifted a little bit to the east to be on the property line of those 4 parcels, 1721, 1725, 1720, and 1736. That was something I just wanted to make sure that I touched on before I forgot. Now, device number 2. Device number 2 is a speed table. So our slide reads device number 2, speed table at 1650. Approximate dimensions are shown. And the device considerations are that this device reduces driver speed. It may reduce the traffic volume. That there is reduced emergency response delay, but it is very minimal. And this device was chosen in response to desires from our fire department for them to be able to get their apparatus through more easily. On the right-hand side of the slide, you'll see an image of this device. It shows that our maximum height is 3 inches. That the approaches are parabolic taper, just like a speed hump that you may have seen in other locations in your neighborhood. A speed table is 22 feet in length longitudinally along the road. It is the same width as the road from gutter pan to gutter pan. It will not interfere with drainage. And as is shown on the image here, we have 6 feet of taper up into the maximum height on either side, and the top at the maximum height is 10 feet longitudinally along the road. So Andrea, I think, did we receive any comments on this one ahead of time that we do want to address?
Yes, so there is one comment. Overall, people are very in favor of this from all the feedback we have received, but the one comment that we did receive is, could you please address the possible noise increase concerns that raised devices have?
Yeah, that's a good question that we frequently hear. There is a little bit of noise that is associated with the devices. I would say that generally that any vertical device has the potential for that, especially if someone approaches and drives over the device at a speed in excess of what this device is really designed for. And the devices out here, they will be designed for 25 miles per hour. You can have a little bit of a loading and unloading sort of sound as drivers are driving over this. We have a lot of vertical devices installed throughout the city, and when we do our 1-year feedback questionnaires for these projects and ask folks if they have any feedback to give us, it does not come up as a concern post installation. So I think it's a very infrequent sort of thing that would happen.
Perfect, I think that addressed it. I think we're ready to move on to questions, if there are any.
So we have a hand raised from Don Yeats. Don, I am allowing you to speak. You should be able to unmute yourself on your screen and ask your question, please.
Okay, this is more of a comment than a question. I really have no problem with the speed tables at all. But what we might want to do is, and I know this would change the itinerary of the meeting, but talk about the speed circles at Exmoor and Warwick, because that could change maybe the location of the speed tables.
And Don, if you could clarify, so we intend to get feedback on each of these devices individually, but are you saying that if the circles were removed or not supported, you'd be interested in looking at alternate locations for the speed tables?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about if it's all right, we continue to move forward with getting feedback on the device locations as they are proposed, and perhaps we can circle back to a discussion on potential revised locations as we get more feedback along the way. So
Okay.
maybe at the very end, or maybe partway through once we've gotten to the speed circle or the traffic circle location. Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you though for that suggestion.
Good.
Another question?
Thank you.
Oh, and this is Andrea. Kayla, just to add to what Kayla said, we have thought about that, Don. So we will have polling questions already populated for you to ask about. But I have a quick one. Anne has chimed in the question and answer. She asked the question, can vehicles coming off of Overridge up the hill onto Glenwood see the speed table before they are on it? Poor visibility, this not be as much of a concern if the intersection is not changed. So Cynthia, do you want to add anything about that?
Yeah, the devices are really visible because of the pavement markings that they have on them. So just as you can see the street as you're driving in that direction, you'll be able to see the device and the pavement markings that are there, and you'll have sight distance to be able to stop or slow as need be. Additionally, I'm just going to throw this in right now because it is something that does usually come up when we're looking at vertical devices in a neighborhood, and that is a question of how do the snowplows know that they're there? Will the snowplows hit the devices? We do use side mounted flexible delineator. It's a post that goes in the ground. It's a plastic flexible delineator that goes down into the ground, and there's one located on either side of the device. It does have a reflective area on it as well, so that as the plows are approaching, they will see the delineators and they know that they need to adjust their blade depth for the device. I did notice also that we have a comment that it's very dark in this section of the street. So our pavement markings are also reflective, so that even at night they are visible.
Thank you, Cynthia. And we have a hand raised from Nikki Wardner. Nikki, I have marked you as allowed to speak. Please press the unmute button on your screen and ask your question.
Well, I guess can you hear me?
Yes.
I guess I put my question in the Q&As, but my concern is that section of Glenwood is very dark. And part of it is because of the overgrowth on the west side of the street. I've lived here 30 years and we've complained about the brush and the overgrowth for 30 years and the city has done nothing. So it's very dark and it's also very steep. I know my daughter took a wipeout on her bicycle right in that section between Creers and right in front of 1650, because that's the steepest part of the hill. So putting a speed table there, I know you say there's reflectors and whatever. I have no problems with steep speed tables. I perhaps have a problem with the slope of the hill there and the darkness of the street. It's dark on that street.
Okay, thank you, Nikki. Appreciate that additional context for your comment. Cynthia, if there's anything further to add on that, please let us know. Otherwise, back over to you, Andrea, if we have any other Q&A.
Well, just really quickly, Cynthia, can you please elaborate on ways that residents on Glenwood or in this neighborhood in general can request additional light concerns? Like, is there a questionnaire for that? Is there an email? Is there a contact person? And we can provide that information too in the meeting summary.
Yeah, I think we can provide that information in the meeting summary. I think also if you have a lot of concerns that we're hearing right now, we did, as part of our initial questionnaire process for this project, we heard a lot about vegetation concerns. And vegetation is not part of the traffic calming process, but I am a transportation engineer, so outside of the traffic calming process, engineering is working with forestry to address concerns about this. And I'm going to apologize ahead of time. I've had several phone conversations today, so at this point in time, it's a little hard to remember what I said in the meeting and what I may have said earlier. But so if I'm repeating myself, I do apologize. But we have contracted forestry about this. They will be pursuing some vegetation removal a little bit later this year. Is my understanding that activity will occur after the trees have gone dormant for the year. There are a couple of considerations that lead into that. One of them is the bat habitat. We want to make sure we're outside of bat habitat. We do have an endangered bat in the area, so we want to make sure we're outside of their season. And then also, if there happen to be any oak trees that are on the corridor, if the oaks aren't dormant, they're susceptible to oak wilt, which is a pretty serious disease for the oak trees. So that is something that will be pursued outside of the traffic calming program. But if there are concerns such as, a vegetation site distance at an intersection or along a corridor, or streetlights or some of those types of concerns, using the city's A2Fixit app, you can either download that app onto your phone or you can use it through the city's website, is a really great way to report a lot of these concerns. You are asked to answer a series of questions, so that will route your item of concern in the right direction as far as what section of the city that it needs to go to. And something like vegetation, it is an ongoing maintenance issue.
Thank you, Cynthia. One last thing. We had a question from someone that said Nikki had just asked, is the pedestrian safety part of the traffic calming process? Just a quick response to that one.
Sure, we take pedestrians into consideration when we're doing those designs, but that is typically when we have actual pedestrian facilities installed. So a lot of places you'll see we have like raised crosswalks in locations where we have pedestrian facilities installed. So if this area is interested in pursuing pedestrian facilities, that would be outside of the traffic calming program. And that's something we can get the information regarding that petition process into the meeting summary.
And Cynthia, if I could chime in, this is Kayla. I know that sometimes in past public meetings, we've had questions about what do we mean by pedestrian facility? By that, simply we're referring to a sidewalk. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Kayla.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
And we also get lots of questions about whether or not we can stripe bike lanes. And at this point in time, with the non-motorized plan that we're operating under, we do not stripe bike lanes like on neighborhood streets.
Thank you. So it seems like all the questions pertaining to this device have been answered. There are no other current hands raised, so I'm proposing that we move forward to polling. So I'm going to launch a poll pertaining to device number 2. And again, if you've called in, please press *9 to provide your answer. But the question is, do you support device number 2, speed table at 1650? Yes, I support this device and live in the petitioned area. Yes, I support this device, but do not live in the petitioned area. No, I do not support this device and live in the petition project area. No, I do not support this device and do not live in the petition project area.
And again, if any callers want to participate, please press *9 to raise your hand. And I know number 887, who we've had some trouble with audio, if you can text your responses to Erica Stein and she can read them aloud, that would be most helpful. And I don't see any hands currently raised. We have a few phone callers on the line. Just let us know if you'd like to participate. So we'll do just a few more seconds here. I'm gonna go ahead and close the poll in 3, 2, 1. So I'm ending the poll. And so for the question, do you support device number 2, speed table at 1650 Glenwood? The responses are 29% said, oh, sorry, let me share the results so you can see them on your screen. You should now be seeing the results. So 29% said, yes, I support this device and live in the petitioned project area. 54% said, yes, I support this device, but do not live in the petitioned project area. 4% said, no, I do not support this device and live in the petitioned project area. And 14% said, no, I do not support this device and do not live in the petitioned project area. So we do have well over a majority of support between those who live in the project area and do not live in the project area, who both support this device at this location. And I'll turn it back over to you, Cynthia.
Great, thanks, Kayla. So we're going to go ahead and move on to device number 3. And our slide reads device number 3, traffic circle at Glenwood and Exmoor. Approximate dimensions are shown. Device considerations. This device reduces driver speed. It is a horizontal, it's a horizontal device, so that means it's a device that you drive around, which creates a narrowing and a feeling that you need to slow down. It highlights the intersection and possible conflicts with pedestrians, cyclists, and other drivers. Staff have proposed the intersection traffic circle devices due to the fact that we did hear very specifically that there were concerns about conflicts at the intersections, especially with pedestrians. And there was also a desire to not have another type of device such as a bump out or a narrowing on the outside edge of the intersection due to the amount of pedestrian and cyclist activity that occurs in this neighborhood. There's also an image shown here with the device and some approximate dimensions. I will point out that we did have some concerns about the initial layout, and we received some feedback, and we went out in the field and we looked at that a little bit more closely, and that was adjusted a little bit. You may have seen that the initial layout of the traffic circles was painted out with black, and then a new pink circle was installed to give that a little bit of a different alignment based on feedback that we received. This device will be made out of concrete, including the central island. The island top. The curb will be what we call a mountable curb. So it'll have a roll to it. That is to allow any infrequent larger vehicles that are coming through to be able to safely navigate the intersection, such as if there were a large moving truck that came into the area, which is a vehicle that we don't need to design for on an everyday basis, such as maybe like a UPS delivery truck or a school bus, but an infrequent vehicle that then could drive over that island and be able to navigate that just fine. We provided the example of Easy Street at Caramel to go and be able to experience this type of device at another location in the city. So let's go on let's open it up for some questions that we have.
And we will round up questions at 7:30. So we do have a few in here, and I'm happy Cynthia, if you've already addressed them, you can.
No, we just opened up for questions.
Perfect. So just a few things that we did hear from the public prior to this. So we just want to make sure that these things, we'll get them out there if there are things that you have concerns about as well. That, specifically Glenwood and Exmoor, that the corner lots will become extensions of the road. The concerns with people ending up in the driveway or in the grass extensions and stuff, that people will drive over the roundabout instead of around it. Pedestrians or cyclists will be hit while cars are trying to avoid the traffic circle, and that lanes are too narrow, which, Cynthia, I'm pretty confident you already addressed the 2 lanes narrow. So those are the few things that we've already heard. And then we have some questions that have come in that say, do you think that traffic calming at Easy Street has been a success? Specifically, do you think this traffic circle is a success on Easy Street? Because we use it as a comparable. Cynthia?
Sorry, I was answering, but I was muted.
You're okay.
I'm going to cover a couple of things all at once. I do want to address something that has come up a lot, and that is this a roundabout? What is this traffic circle? What are intersection operations going to look like? These are intersection traffic circles, so it is a horizontal deflection device. Unlike a roundabout, it would not be a yield on entry. The traffic control at the intersection would not change, so there would not be any splitter islands or anything like that. It is just something for you to drive around. So that is something that I did want to point out. As far as has the project on Easy been a success? I would say yes. The Easy Street actually was a project that was put together before the city's traffic calming program existed. And I know that there were a lot of concerns out there, and that particular project was addressing items other than just a traffic calming. The traffic calming was kind of incorporated into something. Those devices were incorporated into a larger project. But I'm not receiving complaints about speeds out there, so I would say that yes, it probably is. I know there was a comment about people driving on the wrong side of the street, and I don't have greater context for that, but you know, a traffic circle, most folks will go to the far side as they are making a left, but it is permissible to make a left on the near side of that island, although most folks will kind of treat it like a roundabout, especially as roundabouts have become more common in the States and people are more used to driving them, that they will drive around on the far side, but it is permissible to make a left turn on the near side as well. Did I miss anything?
Nope, that was perfect. So we did have a few more questions. How does this reduce conflicts with pedestrians if they are in the street trying to walk around the traffic circle at the same time going, as a car goes through? Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, this design doesn't necessarily eliminate conflicts of pedestrians and bicyclists and vehicles sharing the same operating space, but it does highlight the fact that the intersection is there. So if you do have more of that through trip driver who may not necessarily be aware or intimately familiar with the area, it highlights the fact that that is an intersection. It is a junction. You need to be looking for those conflicts at that location. I see in here also, Andrea, that we have a question about is what advantage is this over putting stop signs in? And stop signs are not part of the traffic calming toolbook. There is some information in our guidebook about this. Stop signs address allocation of right-of-way at an intersection, and they are not a speed management device. And then there's a question, is there any change in the curb on the west side of the street? And the way that the intersection is laid out now, as I previously discussed, you know, a 10-foot vehicle lane is our minimum. So that lane right now, as it's laid out, you know, there's more than 10 feet there. We could place these without having that kind of eyebrow there, but that's something that, as far as an engineering decision, has not been completely ruled out yet. So when this type of device is installed at a T intersection, it's not an infrequent thing for it to include the eyebrow, particularly so that you can place that circle and get a little bit more deflection from the motorists who are on the top of the T.
Cynthia, would it be possible for you to give a little more explanation on what you're referring to as an eyebrow on the street?
Yeah, thank you, Kayla. You're really good at reminding me when I get jargony. So I'm going to ask, can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the intersection of Easy Street and Caramel, and we're facing southbound. So we have our island here, and this island, it's a little bit bigger, and it does have turf in the center of it. Part of this project was addressing flooding. So they were looking for ways to reduce the impervious surface out here. And that's why we have some permeable pavers out here as well. This area right here is kind of the bent out area that was referenced in our question. And that's what I was referring to when I called this an eyebrow. It's kind of just like a little bit of a deviation on that curb line out there. It would still be within the public right of way. It would not, it wouldn't even have to go very far if we did do something like that. And that was, as I said, would just require a driver who's coming up to just shift over a little bit more as they're going through and kind of eliminating that straight line path as far as like, you know, just getting people to slow down a little.
Thank you, Cynthia. And now I'm going to turn over to a couple of hand raised questions. We have Florence has raised your hand. Florence, I've marked you as allowed to speak. If you press the unmute button on your screen, please ask your question.
Okay, this is Marvin Gerber, Florence's husband.
Oh,
I live just a little ways from the intersection where the traffic circle is going to be proposed on Overridge. I see no need for it. It's just added cost, which does not solve anything. We can put up signs that are more easily visible. As far as a traffic circle on Exmoor and Glenwood, again, it's unnecessary. It's just an added expense that really.
Thank you for that feedback, Florence. We appreciate, or sorry, Marvin, I apologize. I'm going to go ahead and mute you and move on to Don. Don, if you would like to ask your question, you've now been marked as allowed to speak. Please go ahead.
Thank you. You know, I also have the concerns about pedestrians and bicyclists being pushed over and not having enough room, but that has been you know, already spoken to. But one thing that I've noticed, and I walk on Glenwood a lot, is that as cars come up Glenwood, most cars, and they see pedestrians, they move to the center of the road, you know, to avoid the pedestrians. With a circle, at that point in the road, they won't be able to do that. And so that's just another added situation where you're kind of forcing vehicles and pedestrians into a smaller area. Another question, I guess, is I know that another tool in your box are raised intersections. And would that be appropriate here? And would that also solve the problem of slowing traffic down?
Don, I love that question. So we will be polling on that actually. And you've actually, we had another person in the question answer category who asked, you know, if there would be, you know, maybe a speed bump near the intersection or something to slow down traffic. So we will be polling on that when we get to polling. Okay. So you've actually transitioned us if we would be happy to do.
And before we transition, I did want to go back to Marvin's question. There was one thing I was just thinking that Cynthia might want to address, because I know that Marvin mentioned putting up signage. And if Cynthia has anything to comment on the difference in effectiveness between an engineering change on the street as compared to posting a sign, please add that contribution if you can.
Yeah, Kayla, thank you for that reminder. Signs are really effective when they are, you know, warning you of an immediate threat, or, you know, like you've got a merge, you're losing your lane, you need to merge, you need to get in a certain lane to make a turn at an intersection. The reason that traffic calming got developed by the industry is that signs and posting speed limits repeatedly in neighborhoods just wasn't getting that change in driver behavior that communities were looking for. So traffic calming is a toolbox of physical devices that are designed to get a different choice out of a driver. And so you're changing the built environment to encourage drivers to operate their vehicles at speeds you want them to be driving at. So they're far more effective. Physical devices are far more effective than just installing signs.
Thanks, Cynthia. That's helpful. I know there's a comment you've made before that I think might help to resonate with the group, is that those drivers who are speeding on the street are already choosing to ignore a speed limit sign. If one is posted, it may not be in a residential area, but in general, they're choosing to ignore that. They will likely choose to ignore other posted signage. So I think that's a good reminder on effectiveness. And now back over to you, Andrea.
I'm going to address the one last question, and then I'm going to address this question at the same time I actually open polling. So feel free to go to polling. So slide, and I'm going to launch the poll now. So the poll says, do you support device number 3, traffic circle at Glenwood and Exmoor? And as like before, usually, yes, I support this device and live in the petition project area, which is Glenwood from Overridge to Washtenaw. Yes, I support this device, but do not live in the petitioned area. No, I do not support this device and live in the petition project area. And no, I do not support this device and do not live in the petitioned area. We just had another question too come through. But if we get anyone who raises their hand, and by the way, we will pause this answering this other question to take your answer. But, is it possible to have sidewalks on Glenwood? That is a process outside the traffic calming program, and that question will be addressed in the meeting summary. There is a way to request sidewalks, but it is by a special assessment, which is paid for by the properties that sidewalks goes in front of. So you will have a special assessment with it. I know we've mentioned that before. It was mentioned in our last meeting. We've covered it a few times in this one. So sidewalks are outside the traffic calming program, and they are done by a special assessment.
And I'll just add on to what Andrea said there as polling is wrapping up. We are here talking about traffic calming because that is the petition that we received. It was resident initiated. We are responding to that. Residents can initiate a petition as well for sidewalks. And as many comments and questions have come up about pedestrian safety and the appropriate walking space for a pedestrian is in a sidewalk. And that is absolutely an avenue that Glenwood, the residents on Glenwood could pursue if they're interested. And then I think with that, I don't see any hand raises. So just as a reminder for our call-in listeners, it's *9 if you do have an interest in raising your hand to contribute a poll response. And if your audio is not working, text a friend and have them provide your response that way to us. But for this one, we'll go ahead and close. Perfect. And we are going to share results. Oh, and one hand just shot up. So let me allow Cynthia. I'm going to allow you to speak. If this is about contributing a poll response, please do so. If it's a different question, then please hold it. So you now should be able to unmute yourself, Cynthia, and let us know.
It's related to this poll question,
but
sure, maybe I should. I am wondering if an automated speed measuring device with potentially automated ticketing system is available to a traffic calming process. If that's a sort of electronic automation device that is available to you to solve this problem, because it seems we're making a lot of physical changes, but what we need to do is to enforce the speed limit on that street, as well as clear back the brushes on the west side of the road. Just a comment. Yeah.
Thank you, Cynthia. So I will let Cynthia Redinger comment on the effectiveness of enforcement, but perhaps, Andrea, would you prefer to wrap up this poll and then go into the discussion of enforcement versus engineering changes?
Well, actually, I would like to finish this poll and actually go on to poll number 3A, which is about a raised intersection. So I think hold any questions not related to devices. We will have time at the end, hopefully, to talk about it. But I mean, for this one question, Cynthia, if you can provide a really quick response, then we'll get back to this. But any questions not related to devices at this time, we'd really like to hold till the end. So Cynthia Redinger.
That's a great idea, but in the state of Michigan, it's currently prohibited by state law. It is an enforcement tool that we do not currently have access to. You can feel free to contact your state representatives regarding your interest in that, however.
Thank you, Cynthia. So the responses received for this, for the poll, do you support device number 3, traffic circle at Glenwood and Exmoor? Yes, I support this device and live in the petitioned area, 10%. Yes, I support this device, but do not live in the petitioned area, 3%. No, I do not support this device and live in the petition project area, 23%. No, I do not support this device and do not live in the petition project area, 63%. So I am going to, from here, launch another poll in regards to this. So it's called Alternative 3A. So do you support a raised intersection in the device 3 location? So instead of the circle, the traffic circle, would you rather have a raised intersection? So
And while Andrea's launching that poll, I'll give you a little bit of a background on that particular thought. And that is that when designing traffic calming, you really want to have devices at a 250 to 500 foot sort of spacing. As we've previously discussed, the devices really need to be working in concert with each other. So if you have too much space between devices, you could end up with actual speed spiking in between those devices, and you could end up with speeds that are higher than you initially had. So hearing some of the resistance that we had heard to the horizontal deflection devices at these locations, we wanted to provide an alternative for your consideration.
yes, we will also be doing this at the intersection of, I think it's called Wickmore. Maybe I'm saying that wrong. Warwick. I'm mixing up Exmoor and yeah, sorry guys. So we will be doing that also at that same intersection of the same 2 questions. So is there anyone who has called in and raising their hand? Remember, you can press *9. Perfect. So at this time, I'm actually going to close poll because it looks like everyone has, oh, I'm still getting a ton more votes in.
I think we can give people a little bit more time on that. And there are lots of locations in the city where we currently have raised intersections. The first one that's coming to the top of my mind is on Jewett, but we do have them throughout. They have a similar approach characteristic as a speed table does. It would just be as large as the intersection is.
I also would like to reread this question one more time. I don't know if there's any confusion, but do you support a raised intersection in the device 3 location, which is the intersection of Glenwood and Exmoor? Yes, you support this and live in the project area. Yes, I support this, but do not live in the project area. No, I do not support this and live in the project area. Or no, I do not support this and do not live in the project area. So I'm going to give it 5 more seconds and then I'm going to close poll. Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to launch results now. So do you support a raised intersection device number 3 location, Glenwood and Exmoor? We have 31% who live in the project area are in favor of this device location, this device. We have 27 that are not in the project area that are in favor of this. We have 0 in the project area that are, no, I do not support this device. And we have 42 that say outside of the project area that say, no, I do not support this device. So with that additional information, we will be able to take this back and when creating the final plan, be able to better assess what this area wants. Thank you. And we will be moving on. If you have your packet of information, I know I haven't been saying this and I apologize, but we are now referencing pages 8 and 9 for the people who have called in.
And I do see a question in the Q&A about offering a do nothing option at this location. So I think as Cynthia explained, it is important for an effective traffic calming installation to have appropriate spacing of devices. So if this plan is to move forward, a device at this location may be important. However, we can consider coming back to a polling question about doing nothing, but we'll save that for the very end to make sure we get through all of the polls we've already prepared within the time. Andrea, is it okay if we take a hand raise now? There's a hand raise from Don, or should we hold that for another time?
I would hold it because we only have about 20 minutes left and we still have to make it through 3 additional devices, with one of them being around the traffic circle. So I just want to make sure we get through that. So Don, do you mind holding it till next question section, unless it is pertaining to this? Oh, he took it down. I appreciate it. Okay, Cynthia, if you can get really quickly through the next one.
Okay, this is where we blitzkrieg, because we spent a lot of time earlier discussing some of these. Our slide reads device number 4, speed table at 1721 and 1720. And as I indicated earlier, we did receive some feedback from the resident who is adjacent to this with front yard, and she asked that we move it to the south a little bit, and that actually works out better for spacing. And when we went out in the field and we looked at it a little bit more closely, we were able to make it work with the structures, so we were able to go ahead and make that change. It is a 22-foot speed table, as was listed previously. Our considerations are that it reduces driver speed, that it may reduce traffic volumes, and there will be that minor increase in emergency response, but that delay has been diminished by the device selection that we have chosen here. And we also have our image that is showing our speed table, and as Andrea pointed out, you can find that in your packet of information. So do we have any questions on this device?
We will be wrapping up questions a little earlier. I know we said we have 10 minutes, but I'm thinking we'll go for about 8 to save some time. So any quick questions? Don, did you have a question? Can we answer it now? I'd be happy to unmute you. Just feel free to raise your hand. Perfect. Or well, Kayla, do you mind, since my technical difficulty?
No problem. Don, you have now been.
Yes. Yeah, what my comment was, and it kind of affects the speed tables also, but another option besides the raised intersection would be to add speed tables. And is that correct? You know, maybe just, you know, like at Overridge, you could add one just north of Overridge. But this also could be talked about at the end of our discussion of all of the devices.
Okay, thank you, Don. I think that's probably best that we come back to the idea of, if the circles are not supported, doing more speed tables overall. We can talk about that, as well as the other suggestion we heard about a do nothing option at these intersections.
Great.
So thank you, Don.
Okay, thank you.
Seems like we do not have any more questions, which is saving us a ton of time, which is great. But please ask them if you have them. So I'm going to launch poll. Our poll is, do you support this device? Again, do you support device number 4, speed table at 721 and 720? Yes, I support this device and live in the petition area. Yes, I support this device, but do not live in the petition area. No, I do not support this device and live in the petition area. Or no, I do not support this device and do not live in the petition area.
And again, for our phone callers, if you would like to press *9 to raise your hand, we'd be happy to enable you to speak so you can contribute a poll response as well. That is *9.
I'll leave this open for another 5 seconds before closing. Again, if you have any questions. Perfect. Okay, I'm ending polling now and sharing results. So do you support device number 4, speed table? Yes, we have, I live in the project area, 32%. Yes, I support this device, but do not live in the petition project area, 50%. No, I do not support this device and live in the petition project area, 4%. And no, I do not support this device and do not live in the petition project area, 14%. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. And we were actually going to move on to device 5. Cynthia, you might be muted.
You're right, I was. Thank you. Device number 5, our slide reads device number 5, traffic circle at Glenwood and Warwick. Approximate dimensions are shown as well as an image of the intersection with the traffic circle in it. Device considerations are that it reduces driver speed, it highlights the intersection and possible conflicts with pedestrians, cyclists, and other drivers. As previously discussed, we can take questions on this device if we have any additional questions. It is similar to one at Exmoor.
Yes, and I also want to note that if there's anything that should be added that has not been covered previously at the intersection of Exmoor and Glenwood. So something new. Is there anything new that we need to know or address, or are we ready to pull on this device? I'll leave the floor open for a minute. So we had a question come in that said, or not question, a comment that says, same concerns as the other traffic circle. That's kind of what we heard from the previous comments from the people who had called and provided emails. Anything else? Perfect. Polling.
Don, I'm going to allow you to speak. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, one additional problem at that one is due to the curvature of the road, the sight lines on the west side are really bad. And then that combined with what Nikki Wardner said about the brush, the brush actually does hang out about 3 to 4 feet on the west side there. But it's really, it's a little bit different than Exmoor. It's a little more dangerous there because of the sight lines. And that is my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
I would like to point out before Andrea launches her polling that the work that will occur as far as like the vegetation removal that will occur this winter, late fall, early winter type kind of time, which would be before any if this project progresses to installation, that would be before any of that work gets started.
Thank you, Cynthia. I'm going to launch the poll now. I bet all of you know what it's going to say. Do you support device number 5, traffic circle at Glenwood and Warwick? Yes, I support this device and live in the petition area. Yes, I support this device, but do not live in the petition project area. No, I do not support this device and live in the petition project area. No, I do not support this device and do not live in the petition project area. Again, if you are a caller, you can press *9 and we will be happy to unmute you. You can provide your response. Lisa, your question, could you clarify a little bit in the comment section about, I guess I'm not quite sure what you mean by, can you say more specifics about how high do we have alternate plan for Glenwood/Warwick intersection?
And Lisa, if it's easier for you to ask your question verbally, then please just raise your hand and we'll unmute you. Again, the way that the question reads as typed, can you say more specifics about how high do we have alternate plan for Glenwood-Warwood intersection? So there may be a typo there and it's not coming across clearly. And the clarification that's been offered, speed table versus traffic circle as you offered at Exmoor?
We will be doing that. We'll be pulling that here as well, if that's your question.
Yep, so after we complete this poll on the traffic circle at location 5, we will pull about a raised intersection at location 5.
Perfect. I am actually going to close polling now. And polling, share results. So, do you support device number 5, traffic circle at Glenwood and Warwick? We had 4% within the project area that supported it, 4% within the not in the project area that supported it, 24% within the project area do not support it, and 68 with outside the project area do not support it. So that information is very helpful. We appreciate it. Going forward, we're going to open the next poll, which is an alternative. And it is, do you support a raised intersection in the device 5 location for Glenwood and Warwick? So again, yes, I support this device and live in the petition project area. Yes, I support this device, but do not live in the petition project area. No, I do not support this device and live in the petition project area. No, I do not support this device and do not live in the petition project area. Cynthia, would you mind answering Nikki's question, which was, is the Warwick circle too close to the 720, 721 speed table?
Yeah, I'm going to, while you're polling, well, I was going to move back, but then I realized that the poll is on top, so nobody's going to be able to see it. It will not be. We will make sure that as we're looking at these, that the spacing, I mean, the spacing was already proposed. It did that 1721 to get moved a little bit, but it's not a significant enough relocation to really change the spacing of the devices. So the devices will still be at a reasonable spacing.
It is about between 200 and 300 feet.
Yeah.
Based off of our current plan.
Mm-hmm.
So we're within, I think, what you said. I just opened it up, sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you. I know that you have it open separately, and I don't have it open separate from the slide deck.
Nope, I get it. So I'm going to end polling, and I'm going to share results. So, do you support the raised intersection? People, yes, I support the raised device and live in the petitioned area, 33%. Yes, I support this device, but do not live in the petition project area, 26%. No, I do not support this device and live in the project area, 0%. No, I do not support this device and do not live in the petition project area, 41%. So, thank you for that feedback. We appreciate it. We did have a quick question come out that said, can we have 2 speed tables that close together? Cynthia, I mean, feel free to answer that question.
Yeah, so as we discussed, it looks like the device spacing is going to be about 250 feet approximately. It's somewhere between 200 and 300. So it's probably going to be around 250 feet, which is a reasonable spacing.
And within our normal parameters of, what was it, like 250 to 6?
250 to 500 is where we try to stay within. We do have some locations where we have gone down to 200 in response to a site-specific condition, but we do try to stay within the industry standard of 250 to 500.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to device 6, which is a speed table. Cynthia, if you want to get through that pretty quickly, we have about 9 minutes left, and we really would like to make sure that we answer any other additional questions if needed.
Yeah, so device number 6, the slide reads, speed table at 880, between 880 and 1880 and 1885. Maybe I can't get through this fast. The approximate dimensions are shown in the image attached. It's the same as the other ones, and the driver considerations are, the device considerations are reducing driver speed. It may reduce traffic volume. and that slight impact to emergency response delay. So same as the other speed tables, just in a different location. So if anyone has any questions pertaining to this particular device.
We will leave it open for about 5 minutes for questions. I know it says 10 minutes, but we're trying to tailor to the time. Feel free to ask them. So we have a question that says, where exactly is this? This would be in front of the first house.
Yeah, so should I go back to the overall?
Yes, feel free.
Okay.
People, you can minimize your poll if you would like. Oh, I hadn't posted it yet. We were doing questions. My apologies.
Whoops, too far. Here we go. So this is at the southern, down towards the southern end of the corridor, and it is just north of that first.
Thank you, Cynthia. We have another question that came in. Is this too close, or is this close to where the road begins to open up to Washtenaw intersection? Will this impede speed increase in the winter to get up the hill to the intersection? Cynthia?
You still have a good amount of distance between this device and Washtenaw, so I don't foresee that being it being a problematic and impact in that. And that being said, you're not slowing to nothing as you travel over these particular devices. If it's inclement weather, you're definitely going to be a little bit more cautious, but you won't need to stop to travel over them.
Perfect, thank you. We have another question that came in really quickly, and then I'm going to take this as at the end. And in summary, are we looking to put 4 devices in that are about 250 feet apart with 3 speed bumps / tables give us the same desired effect? So I guess the question is asking, in summary, you're looking for 4 devices, but would 3 give the same desired effect?
So
I would need to look at that a little bit more closely because the intersections were an area of concern, so we definitely want to be highlighting those intersections. And it's a comment that we'll take as staff, and we'll go back and look at it in preparation of a final plan. But it really, there is a definite desire to highlight the intersections.
Thank you. A question came out and says, is this too much? Is this too many raised devices now? Is, again, like Cynthia just said, that we will take all of that into consideration. Any other questions? Alrighty, I am going to launch the poll, Cynthia, if you don't mind moving that, to ask the question. So, launching poll now.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, you're fine. Do you support device number 6, speed table at 880 and 885? Yes, I support this device and live in the petition project area. Yes, I support this device, but do not live in the project area. No, I do not support this device and live in the petition project area. No, I do not support this device and do not live in the petitioned project area. I'll leave it open for a few more seconds. Thank you. I'm going to end polling now and share results. So for people on the phone, this is what the results are. Do you support device number 6? Yes, I support this device and live in the petitioned area, 24%. Yes, I support this device, but do not live in the petition project area, 20%. No, I do not support this device and live in the petition project area, 8%. And no, I do not support this device and do not live in the petition project area, 48%. We appreciate that feedback, and we will take that all into consideration when developing the final plan. And we are going to move forward really quickly to cover some tentative next steps. So final polling. We are, sorry, give me a second.
So before Andrea moves into final polling, I am going to launch a poll. This was a request from Councilmember Lum, and I think it is a good one. A question whether or not the participants support a plan that would include 3 speed tables and 2 raised intersections for this stretch of road. So that's the entire design that we've been talking about. We've talked about some different variations, but this does seem to be one that has, from an initial glance, some traction with the participants. So I am now launching a poll that you should see on your screen that says, do you support a plan for Glenwood that includes 3 speed tables and 2 raised intersections? And those are at the locations we've talked about, but I've kept it simple for the purpose of this poll. So if this is getting feedback on the comprehensive collection of these devices. And we'll try to keep this moving. I know we've got just 1 minute, and Andrea, I want to make sure she can speak to the final polling. So I am gonna cut us off here rather quickly. If you'd like to participate, please do so in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the results of that poll are, yes, I support this and live in the petitioned area. That's 35%. Yes, I support this, but do not live in the petitioned area. That's 17%. No, I do not support this and live in the petitioned area, 0. No, I do not support this and do not live in the petitioned area. That's 48%. So thank you for that feedback. That's helpful. I apologize, I did not mark share results. So you should see that on your screen now, but these will also be in the summary. And I turn it over to Andrea.
Thank you, and I apologize, I started coughing. So Kayla, thank you so much, I appreciate that.
No
So final polling. So the next steps, final poll. We mail and post online in mid-October, due back to the city mid-November. Results will be tallied by late November. If support is received from the petitioned area, then we will request support from the Transportation Commission at their December 16th meeting and go to City Council in mid-January. If approved by City Council, construction will be scheduled and communicated to the project area residents. And then also anyone who is part of the Glenwood traffic calming email distribution list. So I do want to apologize that we do not have a definitive date for the City Council meeting at this time. The City Council calendar will not be approved until about their December meeting. So once that date has been finalized, an email will be sent to all the Glenwood distribution, to everyone on that Glenwood distribution list. If you're not on the Glenwood distribution list and would like to be added, please send an email to the traffic calming at a2gov.org and request to be added. This information will also be presented at the final slide. So don't worry, there's also another place to see this visually. Slide.
And Andrea, before we do move on, I just wanted to remind everyone that it is the petition area, so the project area, the petitioned area, that will be receiving that final polling. And then there's your next steps.
Yep, sorry, that was the slide that I was.
That's okay.
This is everything that we just talked about. And then slide. So really quickly, questions only pertaining to next steps at this time. Any questions pertaining to next steps? Perfect. Slide. So really quickly, on behalf of the traffic calming team, I would like to thank all of you for attending the Glenwood Traffic Calming Meeting number 2. If you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out by phone or email like it is presented on this slide. Currently, all materials pertaining to the Glenwood Traffic Calming Project area have been posted online. So everything is at your fingertips. If you have not already filled out the demographic survey information, I'm going to launch that now again. And please fill it out if you haven't already done it. That will help the city to better understand who we are reaching and find our ways we can improve our public engagement. I don't mind, and I don't think Cynthia will mind, staying around for another 15 minutes to answer any very last remaining questions. But we will be wrapping up no later than 8:15. So launching the poll now, and then any last minute questions.
And we do have a raised hand. So Monica, I'm going to enable you to speak. You can push unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, hi. So this is about, a couple of times people have raised concerns about pedestrians and pedestrian safety. And the response was that this was not part of traffic calming because that would entail sidewalks and that was not part of your mandate. But Glenwood is just too narrow to have sidewalks. And clearly, just based on the number of questions you've had about sidewalks and pedestrian safety, I think it's surprising to me that this is not a consideration, that it's just slow down the traffic, even if it doesn't help the pedestrians, because it is pedestrians who are using that road a lot. So I just want to know, isn't there a way to consider pedestrian safety in addition to traffic calming?
Thank you, Monica. Cynthia, is that something you can respond to?
Yes, that is something that I can respond to. Glenwood has sufficient right-of-way for the installation of sidewalks, should that be able to occur in the future. And pedestrian safety is definitely something that the city is very interested in. The traffic calming program, it is a fiscally and scope constrained program. So it's not infrequent for a lot of concerns to come up in a traffic calming process where it's something that needs to, that we can facilitate that discussion outside of the traffic calming program. A great example is the work that engineering is doing with forestry to address the site distance concerns along the corridor with the vegetation. So it's definitely, those concerns are not falling on deaf ears. It's just that the scope of this project does not address that. If additional pedestrian facilities in the form of sidewalks is something that the neighborhood is interested in, staff are happy to work with you on that, and we will provide the information for that as a post-meeting note in the meeting summary, that you'll be able to find that information and how that process works.
Thank you, Cynthia. We also have another hand raised. This is Don. Don, I've allowed you to speak. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you. So when I first spoke, I asked about a pedestrian bike line, maybe 3 or 4 feet up at the Overridge intersection. But actually, David Blau had mentioned, say, could that happen all along Glenwood, just on the east side? The west side, for multiple reasons, is just more dangerous to walk on, and that might direct more pedestrians and bicyclists to the west side, besides giving cars, a visual cue to stay away from the curb on that side. So food for thought for.
Yes, thank you, John. Cynthia, I know you spoke a little about this earlier. Is there any final comment you want to make on whether or not we would mark a painted line to allow, to designate a portion of the roadway as part of a pedestrian and bicyclist space? And
yeah, I'm just going to reiterate what I said previously, and that's that, well, pavement markings are not part of the traffic calming program. But in addition to that, we generally do not install pavement markings on local streets other than crossings, marking some crossings, especially when we have crosswalks that are near schools, running from pedestrian facility to sidewalk to sidewalk. And if that's the kind of thing that might be considered as a paint and post project prior to an actual sidewalk installation, but that is a non-standard treatment, and it is not what is recognized as the industry standard for providing a pedestrian space. The industry standard for providing a pedestrian space is sidewalk.
thank you, Cynthia. And we have another hand raised. Andrea, did you want to take any Q&A questions before I go?
Yep, no, that's what I was going to ask is, I see that Cynthia raised her hand, but it's probably, I hope maybe it's in regards to the question she had that we were going to answer next. Once the vegetation issue is remedied through the forestry process, will we have another look at the traffic calming proposal and perhaps an option to consider do nothing but pave/maintain the existing street and site distance? Kayla, I'm going to defer to you because it is about our current process, if you don't mind.
So I'm just rereading the question. So will we have another look at the traffic calming proposal? I would say that at this point, the traffic calming process, we're well underway. I think we're in step 4 out of 5, and a plan will move forward to the final polling step to gather resident feedback. If that does not receive neighborhood support, that will complete that effort for the traffic calming program, whether that be a level of support for installation or an indication that the neighborhood does not support it and does not wish to have traffic calming installed here. If any further discussion wanted to take place about an alternative plan, that would require a new petition. So I'm not sure if that exactly answers your question, but I think generally the answer is that no, this would not come back to this neighborhood for further discussion without a separate petition.
And Kayla, if I may add on to your comments, just a reminder that that polling, the polling that we're referring to is the mail polling that will go out to the project area.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you.
So, and go ahead, Andrea.
Nope, I was going to say, Kayla, on to you.
So there are still 2 hands raised, and I will allow Councilmember Lum to speak. You can press your unmute button.
Thanks, Kayla and Andrea and Cynthia. I appreciate your asking that last question because I thought it was important for all those folks who are attending to understand the sum total of what might be proposed here, given the votes that resulted in approving basically 5 devices, 2 raised intersections and 3 speed tables. And, maybe that can be massaged. So it's, I don't know, maybe 1 less raised intersection and you stick with the 3, but and because the vote was pretty significant that, yeah, people don't like all of these elements combined. So I don't know how that's going to result in any recommendations that you bring forward, but just something to think about. And I also would encourage the city staff to, since you're giving out the email here, and anyone who's interested, for folks who don't necessarily live in the project area, so AKA on Glenwood, because there are a lot of people very interested in this who live on adjacent streets that use Glenwood as their main and only for some access in and out of the neighborhood, that they too will receive feedback on the recommendations, any updates that the city sends out to the Glenwood residents. If folks are interested, that they too will receive those, because there is a lot of interest in the neighborhood. So if you would provide everybody those updates who request them, that would be greatly appreciated. And then just last, and then I guess that's it. I'm also getting questions from people about things that have been addressed tonight, and you're trying to segregate out what traffic calming does, and I appreciate that, versus things like street lights, restriping the road, taking care of the brush and overgrown vegetation, those kinds of things that would help pedestrian safety, sight lines, clearances along this stretch of road. And I will forward to you after this meeting some of these questions and recommendations that I'm receiving from folks who are attending tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Lem. We appreciate that additional, hearing that additional context for the concerns you've heard. And to your comment about the email distribution, anyone who would like to be added to the email list, if we do maintain an email list for each specific project area, you can provide your email in the Q&A. We will not make that public. We will keep that just for our use in adding you to the list to receive communications. So please submit that in the Q&A at this time. And now Cynthia Sheng, I'm going to allow you to speak. You still had a hand raised. If you have an outstanding question, please unmute yourself and ask that now.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make a statement to point out that Arlington has a bike lane on the east side of the road. And when I walk in that bike lane, and the street, traffic generally is going at a good speed, but I feel very safe with the sight distance being very clear, clear line of sight plus the bike lane. That's one comparison to Glenwood. The other thing is on Platt, south of Glenwood, there is a bike lane, so it makes continuity from Platt northbound to Glenwood to continue for cyclists coming into the neighborhood. I just wanted to make that observation because it seems like there are a lot of concerns that the neighbors have raised on Glenwood are not a concern on Arlington. Now, traffic by no means travels slower in Arlington, but I do not feel endangered when I walk on Arlington. I just wanted to make that statement.
Thank you. Thank you, Cynthia, for that additional feedback as well. And over to you, Andrea. That's all the hand raised questions. Is there anything left in the Q&A we'd like to address before we wrap up?
No, the only comment we've received is also in comment to what Jane Lum has said, or Councilmember Lum and a few other people, that 5 devices is a bit of an overkill. Can it be 3 or 4 to spread appropriately over the distance to reach the same goal of the traffic calming? All of the data that I guess polls that we have put out there, we will take all of it into consideration and everything that we see. And we appreciate the feedback. We will be wrapping up now. And thank you. We appreciate you attending this meeting and having us in your neighborhood. We've enjoyed it so far. So we appreciate all these questions. It's great when we have a good turnout at a meeting. So again, thank you all. If you feel free to put your email, like Kayla said, in the chat box, we will not make that public. If you also don't feel comfortable doing that, you could also email trafficcalming@a2governor.org and ask to be placed on the email distribution list, and that will be handled. And all communications going to the residents of Glenwood, petition project area, you will also receive their same communication. The only thing is you will not be able to poll on their final poll. But that's the only thing. You will see their same communication and know what they're getting. So.
And that email list will be notified when the summary and the meeting recording are posted to the website. We will keep you informed when that's available.
Yes.
So with that, I think we can conclude the meeting tonight. We'll pause for just a final minute to let anyone else get their email address into the Q&A to us, and then we'll go ahead and end the meeting. So thank you for your time this evening. If Cynthia or Andrea have any other remarks to add, please do. But otherwise, I think this concludes the traffic calming meeting number 2 for Glenwood Avenue.